A lot to get to today in regards to what is soon to be Typhoon Kong-Rey, also known as Leon in the Philippines. And of course, we're still tracking Trami, also known as Christine, impacting Vietnam. Now, I know our friends here across the Philippines, and for good reason, are worried about this storm system. The death toll from Christine is up over 100 following that storm's catastrophic rainfall and impact across the Philippines here. Does look like in more and more confirmation this is going to miss the country, but we are still going to have impacts there before this does make landfall into Taiwan. Winds right now at 110, nearly 120 kilometers per hour, which would be typhoon intensity. This is expected to continue to intensify, maybe up to super typhoon status before coming on shore into Taiwan and skirting the Batanes and Bass here into the Luzon Strait. Now, key thing I want to show you here on satellite imagery, look at the center of circulation. We're getting that low-level center wrapping up in a bit more like a eye at this time, but the bulk of the convection continues to remain on the western periphery. This means the northwest coast of Luzon is still going to be looking at heavy rainfall, likely tropical storm strength winds, but potentially maybe even some typhoon conditions across the islands here and into Cagayan. Taking a look at the forecast as this moves towards northwest, it will rapidly intensify towards the Luzon Strait. It's mentioned kicking just by the Batanes Islands here as a Cat 2, potentially up to a Cat 3 before coming on shore in now southeastern Taiwan, with some of the worst of the impacts being here across central portions of the island. This is not the first time this year we have seen a landfalling strong typhoon in Taiwan. And as in the past, we've talked about, the winds, of course, are an issue. But especially on the East Coast, a lot of the buildings are built for the wind. It's all about the rainfall and how much is going to be taking place out here that could be damaging and deadly here as that storm kicks on by and eventually back there towards eastern China before skirting along the coast around Shanghai and turning towards north and east. If you're curious, yes, the track has skirted towards the west, but it does remain in place that we are expecting this northwesterly turn, and we have been seeing this edge more and more northwesterly in the hindcast here. But originally, yes, it was over towards Miyako-jima. Even Okinawa was in play, and each particular outlook from Pagasa here has edged it further and further off towards the west, with that landfall now into southern Taiwan. And you might be curious, what's going to stop this from turning towards the south and impacting northern Luzon? Mainly, we have this passing trough towards north, and it's all about the timing and interaction with that. But the more this edge further towards the west, the higher the risk of it having some of these feeder bands in the outer core of that storm system impacting Cagayan. And this is why I always go back to saying, and I wish more people paid attention to the overall impacts from the last storm. We go back to saying the center line is not the entire storm, guys. I know that a lot of people get hung up on that, and it's not just a Philippine problem. It's not just a Taiwan problem. In the United States, we have the exact same issue. People see that center line miss their area, and they think, well, I'm going to be great. But especially here, you get those northerly winds wrapping through. We could see a storm surge in places like Apari. Also looking at the heavy rainfall across northern areas of the Madre Mountains, which is going to accumulate on top of already saturated grounds following Christine, which means that we could be looking at some flooding out here into northern Luzon. And then, of course, across Taiwan, where tremendous amount of precip, 500 to nearly 1,000 millimeters, is possible with our storm. But look at the wind field that's stretching out away from that low-level center. These strong winds over 40 kilometers per hour, over hundreds of kilometers away from that low-level center, even already in places like Catanduanes, feeling the impacts from that, which enough to, banana plants being broken, branches being brought down. Of course, things like power outages could be an issue. Closer to that core center, that's probably we're going to be seeing some more moderate to extreme damage potentially. Good news about the Batanes Islands, the Basque Islands, they are built for these storm systems. We saw a Cat 4 run right over them earlier this year, and it was kind of like, there's another. We saw damage, but wasn't extreme because they get. If you want to live somewhere that gets typhoons regularly every year, maybe you're that. I won't judge you. This is the place to be. Look at the extent of those tropical storm strength winds, though. All the way down towards Manila. We have those feeder bands that are going to be coming in with our storm system. But of course, the extent and the core of it edging here across the islands towards Taiwan. So let's zoom right in here, get a higher definition of what I'm talking about. As our storm skirts the northeast coast, here as we go ahead through our day on Tuesday, mainly in the Wednesday morning, we start to see those winds pick up around, Santa Ana right here. Aparis right here, extending up the Cagayan Valley. You're pretty sheltered at that point. But once the winds shift in from the north, you could start to see those winds pick up there. But even places like Ilocos Norte, especially along the northwestern coastline, seeing those winds kind of gusting at tropical storm strength. But look at the core. It's right in here is where the damaging weather is. That's where you're going to be looking at Cat 2 to Cat 3 type stuff. You get closer to the islands here, they could be running right over it, which this could be some of the highest winds reported from this storm system. So, I mean, I hope people out here, Thursday, you're inside, you're staying sheltered, you're being smart. By Thursday afternoon, Thursday late morning, especially into the afternoon, southeastern Taiwan in that right front quadrant, that's where we're going to be looking. Now, this is a very steep shelf here, so storm surge not typically an issue.
Do you hate doing your taxes? Do you struggle figuring out what the law is and money management overseas?
I wish there was an easier way.
Well, FrontrunnerFinancial.com is your choice if this falls into your category. They're an international-based group of American accountants. They're based in Manila, and they're qualified to give you the best information where you are for those international finances. I wish I had these guys when I lived in Tokyo. Each year, it was a struggle. Where I needed to put money, what I needed to do. FrontrunnerFinancial.com. Be sure to check them out and let them know we sent them your way.
But all this moisture comes up and it just smashes into the mountains here, 2,000 meters high. I mean, we're talking about squeezing out that moisture, and it drops tremendous amount of totals. Plus, you get that funneling through the Taiwan Strait, another type of impact too, just with those winds kicking up even as far north as Taipei. So switching gears from the winds over to the rainfall, 29th into the 30th, we could be looking at some of this heavier stuff here across northern Luzon. And then as it pulls away, of course, that flow coming in along the west coast down towards Mindoro, back towards Palawan, you're going to be looking at that precip kind of kicking on by. So we can take a look at the high-resolution view. What we're talking about here, areas in darker red indicating 200 to 300 millimeters. Yeah, see right, or maybe 300 millimeters or more, I should actually say. The western portion of Sierra Madre Mountains, get that flow kicking on through. Ilocos Norte, Ilocos Sur, maybe down towards La Union. You're going to be looking at that precip kicking up. But look along the west coast over towards Subic, 10 to 50 millimeters possible there. Remember, these are already saturated grounds in some of these areas, especially towards the north, that may have not seen the catastrophic flooding you saw in Bicol, maybe over towards Batangas, but the ground is saturated. So more rain on top of that is an issue. And then we skirt back towards the north into Taiwan, and yeah, over 300 millimeters easy across the east coast, but there could be spots 500 to 1,000 millimeters of total precipitation as this pushes on by. So, of course, the heavy rainfall, an issue. Stressing. If you're not under signal force warning, still watch out for those heavy rainfall warnings. Multiple languages here. Want to get this point across. Strong winds for sure. Flooding, an issue. Storm surge, Cagayan. You could be looking at that. Now, tornadoes are possible. I think more so in the Taiwan, on the right side, the dirty side of the storm. But some of that convection could flare up and kind of, especially off towards north, we get a little bit of friction that could kick up the tornadoes. I always found it interesting in multiple languages. In the Philippines, tornado is always the same word. Know your information through official sources, guys. I'm not official source. Pagasa has been doing a great job tracking these storm systems. They put out a lot of updates. If you watch the full briefings in Tagalog, maybe I speak too fast in English, go to them, check out their full briefing in Tagalog. They do a great job breaking down the details of this. Look at Trami, by the way. I'd be remiss to not talk about this. This has been bringing flooding into central Vietnam. It's weakening out. This has been a rumor for a few days now. Is it going to turn around and come back towards the east? Are we going to have a secondary Trami, secondary Christine? No, our storm system is going to move off towards north. This is getting weakened out by dry air and shear. If anything, maybe some moisture flow could come back towards the Philippines, but in general, nah. I'm not worried about Trami reemerging as a typhoon and coming back to the Philippines. It's not on the table here. Okay? Okay. That's a lot. Hopefully you watched this video all the way through. And if you did, and you find these updates useful, please check out our Patreon. Link is down below. $2 a month goes a long way in supporting this channel on top of our fantastic sponsors who continue to help out. Make these updates possible so we can give you accurate information, because it's not just me. A lot of these graphics were produced here by Lex at Western Pacific Weather. He does a great job building these graphics, and also courtesy of Metro Weather's Weatherscape, which a lot of your support helps pay for those visuals too. At least this isn't all just me, of course. There's a whole team, there's a whole kind of community here, and I would really appreciate it if you jump on board and help. As always, thanks for watching, and number one, friends, please